name is Evan Raskob. I'm an inventor slash musician. I have several instruments that I've created. I've been working on getting a performance group together to play these instruments in live, real situations out in New York City clubs. We found kind of a home with the Frying Pan, which is an actual ship that's been turned into a club. It floats in the water. It's actually docked in Chelsea off the west side of New York. I'm a graduate student at New York University's Interactive Telecommunications program, which is part of the film school, but is focused on interactivity and the relationship between humans and technology. And a big part of that is musical instruments. I took a course called NIME, New Instruments for Musical Expression, NIME, and as part of it I had to do a performance of my instrument, which was called the sound shell. The sound shell worked off sampled sound. It took sounds from the room and let you manipulate them using this giant hammer that you waved at the front of it and sometimes hit it with. It was kind of a cross between a theremin and whack-a-mole.
It was a stream of pages about organic chemistry and how we should use naturally occurring water-based chemical processes instead of the wasteful and toxic chemistry we use today to create plastics and other synthetic materials. To most people, this would remind them of the chemistry class they failed their freshman year of college. But I was inspired in spite of the subject matter. The book talks about sea creatures, like the abalone, who create their protective shells out of seawater itself. They secrete strands of protein that attract very specific minerals floating around them, building up their shells crystal by crystal, layer by layer over time. They do no heavy lifting. Their raw materials are minerals. I made an instrument that mimics this process, down to the smallest detail, by attracting specific layers of sound, rather than specific ions of calcium. It builds up layers of sound, like layers of shell. The sound shell has no sound source of its own. When activated, it sits and samples the sounds in the room, picking out preset frequencies, and setting them like crystals into overlapping, continuously moving layers of sound that can be manipulated. But I've given the musician only as much control to manipulate the sound as the sea creatures have over their own shells, which is not much. For instance, there is a gene in the creatures, like the abalone, that causes each successive layer of sound to be randomly offset from the others, so that a close-up picture of a shell fragment looks like a jaggedly uneven brick wall. Accordingly, you can start sound show collecting sounds, stop it, clear specific sample sounds, and fraction of sound hang it in a special boundary. But there is a randomness as to how the sounds are recorded, and you have no control over, and which drives the performance.
For the performance, I actually took a vocal track of myself explaining what it does, and I manipulated it live using the controls. It was a very conceptual piece, based mostly on ideas about recorded sound and not having a sound source, and just using the sound in the room, like wherever you go. I think it was fairly successful then, but I've since moved on into other places. I've really begun exploring the question of music and how to build electronic an instrument, and what works when you're building an instrument, and why to build an instrument, and even what to do after you've built an instrument. I mean, is there a scene for this? Do people do this professionally? These are some of the issues that I'm trying to explore here. This is the whole reason that I made this documentary, is to go out and search and see what's going on in New York City, to feel the pulse of electronic music there, and figure out between my fellow students and myself what kind of opportunities there are out there, especially after we're done here in school.
This class called NIME. One of the requirements of that class is to develop a new musical instrument. I don't know if I've succeeded in doing that, but that class definitely was great because it made me think about the ways in which you control sound and what ways are comfortable and not comfortable, and what gestures or motions could be entertaining or not. Why make a new instrument? I think an instrument, like a musical instrument more than anything, is a live interface to something. It's a controller, and it's a controller that you can become good at, that you can develop learned behaviors, and which will make you, perhaps in the audience's eyes, a virtuoso. And I think making a new controller lets us understand our new relationship with the technologies that are emerging and how we can control them in different ways using our bodies.
Just a thought about these interfaces that we're putting together here, in varying degrees. They are more expressive and able to tap into emotional impulse and translate it to some sort of computer response. And I've been really pleased at these NIME conferences, NIME New Interfaces for Musical Expression. One of the people who's really behind this whole idea of creating new interfaces for music is Bill Verplank, who was one of the people who was at Xerox PARC in the early days working on the design of one of the most popular computer interfaces that we have, the mouse. And he is one of the specialists in creating interfaces for the computer. And his special interest now, though, is musical interfaces, because he thinks through musical interfaces, the demands that musicians require, that the response time has to be so immediate. There's so little latency that can be dealt with. Well, this will push interfaces with the computer to beyond what we're used to now: keyboard, mouse, piano, keyboard, drums, and the like. So he's a big proponent of this whole idea, and actually has created a number of force feedback interfaces where the computer actually gives force feedback back to the musician.
Haptic feedback is basically feedback that you can feel. Forces, friction, vibration, things like that. So haptic feedback is kind of any kind of feedback that goes through your skin rather than through your eyes or nose, mouth. A lot of people say force feedback, but that doesn't cover vibration, really. One thing the reason why I'm focused on haptic feedback is because I think that's something that's lacking in most computer instruments. It's just this direct feeling of the sound that you're making. It's not like a direct mapping necessarily of just the sound to like a vibration, but something like a guitar. You feel those strings. You feel that the frets are spaced differently, and you can feel that. Just close your eyes, move your finger up and down. You can feel the fret. You can feel that it's getting wider as you go down, and then of course you can feel the vibration on both hands as you pluck it. Or a trumpet, which I played, you feel the vibration in and it's actually a really important part of playing the instrument. And like when I first tried a MIDI trumpet, they made the mouthpiece where there actually wasn't really a vibration. You're just blowing air in it, and it felt bizarre. It felt you're numb. It felt like you had a big shot of Novocaine, and you're playing this trumpet. The notes were there, but you felt like you're detached.
I need something to be performative. Like for me to be performative, it has to be gestural.
What I want to be able to do is to control different aspects of it live, which will make sense to the audience. So they'll be able to understand that my gestures actually influence the sound directly and are making that sound directly.
Physical phenomena are something that I like to tie the sound to. I like there to be something physical that there is some interaction with. You look at a performer like in Korea, for example, even a singer, they have a fan. You don't sing without a fan. You need some sort of physical thing to have for expression. So.
My name is Daniel Hirschman, and my instrument is called the Audible Kaplinka, which is the combination of an ethnic mbira from Southern Africa, and as the acoustic element, and then a rather strange-looking ping-pong ball controller device, which is slightly motorized and a little bit colorful.
My name is Aya Karpinska, and this is the container for sound. I wanted to make an instrument that's very simple. Didn't have a lot of confidence in my ability to do a physical computing project, so I wanted something that would be very simple to learn, yet allow the performer a broad range of expression. I knew that I was going to be the performer from the very beginning, and I don't know, I have some sort of obsession with cubes and squares. A lot of projects I do, or whether it's graphic art or poetry, seems to be structured around a square or a cube. And this box has two sensors on the sides. So as the flaps move up and down, I get a stream of data going into the computer via MIDI. The box is very flexible. All it does is send data from two sensors, MIDI data, and then with the Max Patch I can do whatever I want. Now I tend to like using pre-recorded data, so manipulation of sound that's already on the computer. And I've started to really try to use only voice samples for this. I'm getting there. I mean, one option for changing this would be to use live sound, have a microphone inside the box, but because the idea is that this is a container for sound, the sound is in the box and I, the performer, by playing with the flaps, moving them up and down, let it out. All right. You know, so in a way, sometimes I'm almost faking it, because when I hit a point in the sound that's oscillating, I'll start shaking the flap, which doesn't always do something, but sometimes it does. But I think the audience perceives a connection from gesture to.
Created this entire environment.
I was surprised when I went to the NIME conference the first time when I presented this, that I felt like I was barking up my own tree, which it was nice, but it was also disappointing because I was hoping I would walk into something that was already underway.
But the conference itself seemed to be like heavily academic and heavily focused on theories and about sound and about ways in which people thought sound could be interesting and perhaps wasn't. And also I felt that a lot of the things that were happening were addressed by musicians, electronic musicians, over the last 15 years. So a lot of the topics that were discussed or were being discussed, I felt were possibly dated, or possibly only filtering through to the academic world.
And we just got to string that down. You know, I should grab a couple extension cords from upstairs.
I don't know if there's really a scene for this kind of stuff anywhere. Except if you're talking like, I don't know, Stanford with Karma and Urcom. There's people doing it. I'd love to see more of a scene happen.
That I want to achieve, and a particular style that I want to work in, and building an interface that'll translate the way that I feel I should be able to interact with that sound into something that fits into a gig bag.
Do you have the lights set where you want them? Nobody has them set anyway.
Nowadays, you've got the band, and then you've got the sound dude who sits in the back and adjusts the levels as the interface. So how do you give that back the ability to be something creative, performative, and spontaneous?
I don't know. It's hard to say.
I now think, I tell myself I want to make something more simple, that I could take it anywhere, and like, you know, something smaller that I could carry, or, you know, and I don't need so much digital setup.
Hans, did you do anything? Yeah.
I've got a test tone if you want.
I wanted to play music, but I'd never been in a band. I didn't know how to play guitar. I went into a concert one day at my university of graduate computer music composers, and I was blown away. I'd never heard any sounds like this. They were. I'll never forget that feeling of just. I was just stunned when I was driving home that I couldn't remember 30 seconds straight of the music. if I had gone to a classical music concert, even if it was a piece I didn't know, composer I didn't know, I felt like I would be able to recall a phrase, the theme, something like that. But how do you approach music that has no theme, that has no words, doesn't have rhythm? I had to relearn how to listen to music, so that started me off on the whole electronic music path. And right away I took an intro to electronic music class, and for the final piece for that class I composed my own music piece.
So for those of you who don't know, we instruments usually expressed in two groups. Thanks for being with us while we set up. And of course we have Bob up front, the ski, and the organ. So sit back and relax as we take you to some ambient joystick, mouse, slider, electronic jamming.
Rest mounts onto the belt, and then there's a shoulder strap, so you end up with an instrument in this position, which is kind of nice. I mean, this works. I thought of maybe something central, like almost like a washboard you have right in front of you. But it doesn't really matter. It doesn't change much from here to here to here. In fact, I play it both ways. Sometimes I play this and I play keyboard at the same time to get more harmony. I really wanted to get going with more electronic music and bought some keyboards and synthesizers and whatever. And as I got to be more accomplished as a player, I thought that I was bothered that we had all these cool electronic instruments and we were controlling them with a piano keyboard, which is sort of built for a specific purpose, you know, or for an organ manual or whatever. I enjoyed playing fretless bass, so I thought, hey, it'd be nice not to have quantized pitch, which is, of course, built into a keyboard and really, you know, has no meaning in the electronic music world unless you want to just stay in equal temperament. So those were all reasons why I got into it, trying to find an interface that could speak to the arbitrary capabilities of an electronic instrument.
It's like what brings us to like build these like crazy, you know, like fragile, like really interesting instruments, you know. I mean, we could have learned to play the violin, right? And
yeah, we're just weirdos.
You know, yeah, excellent.
after we can't hear it anymore. And this drum that I play, it makes a digital sound. I have a force sensor on the surface of the drum that sends this message via MIDI into my max batch on my computer, and it triggers sample sounds. And there's another separate system which, when I feed smoke inside this drum and I hit the surface, it emits a ring of fog in the air. And by creating a ring of fog in the air, I try to persuade, like, to show my kind of like appreciation for how sound lives on and on forever, even after you hear it, but you stop hearing it.
I think one of my frustrations with instruments in computer music a lot of times is that they're built, an instrument, a musical composition, and a performance become one and the same. That is, you wouldn't use that instrument to play any other piece in any other venue, and this happens a lot, where it's all sort of a package deal. And I wanted an instrument that would be more flexible, and especially be able to play more traditional music, and maybe music more in the vernacular. Like, I definitely envision being able to play, Celtic music, blues, jazz, weird electronic music. You should be able to play classical music on this thing. And I want to head toward that place, so instead of becoming an oddity, it can become a ubiquitous thing. Every instrument we have is derived from acoustic principles. You're controlling an acoustic system. I like the idea that with newer control devices built for computers, you could divorce yourself from the acoustic system that you're working with. The acoustic system is arbitrary because it's electronic, and the control system is also the same way.
My thing is, it's not really an instrument in itself, it's more of a system that I'm trying to build for my live performance. The system is that I use the turntable as my sound source, and then I have a computer sample that and sequence that, constructing a piece on the fly real time. I've been developing both on the programming side with Max MSP, and also trying to build new ways to get sound out of the turntable. And so I started building my own styluses, needles. And this is one of them. It is a pickup mic. And rather than having a single record needle to listen to the recorded sound, this compact mic I listen to the physical sound of the record or whatever is on this thing. So by creating a plate like this that has magnets, I kind of have a rhythm machine, because every time the piezo mic rolls over it, it'll have a physical sound. I can get a pattern out of it.
link is broken. What we do with it is now up to us. Whether we, pay tribute to acoustic instruments that have been developed over centuries and build an interface like that is a good idea. But maybe there's some ground to be broken on just like, well, if we have a whole new way to think about it, just clear the slate and think of, well, what would you, if you could have anything you want in music, if you don't want just music to come out of the air, well, how would you do it? How would you tune it?